Okay. Today I wanted to talk about just briefly, not too long, but I got some other stuff to do. I just wanted to talk about moral relativism and why it is that your agents of chaos, or why it is that your harassers and abusers tend to up the abuse whenever it is that you say something that they don't like, or if you do something that they don't approve of. And I just wanted to talk about moral relativism, kind of just going down that route. If you've ever heard of, or if you've ever taking just a bit of a class on ethics and that whole thing. But if you haven't, I just want to briefly just define moral relativism, um, and my issues that I have with it. And that, one of the issues that most people tend to have with it or bring up whenever discussions on moral relativism come up. Um, and ultimately, moral relativism is this idea that there is no universal good or bad behavior. Everything is just, you know, up to chance. It's just what we deem as bad is just what we deem as bad because we say it is, not because it's actually harmful or negative. Uh, there's no such thing as good and evil. We just impose our own values of good and evil. Um, that's kind of in a nutshell what moral relativism is, and to each their own. Like that's a phrase that really defines the whole. Just a nice catchphrase for defining moral relativism. To each their own. If you would do that, then you do that. If you wouldn't do that, then you don't do that. But let other people live how they want to. And on the surface, especially in this day and age, moral relativism sounds like a dream. It sounds so it sounds like such higher level thinking. It sounds very mature. It sounds just so attractive. But where moral relativism starts to get sticky is when people it's when actions definitely lead to negative outcomes, but we choose to just ignore that because, well, hey man, to each their own. Or really, it's about when people don't have a choice in the matter, kind of like with kids and things like that, when they have to be subject to certain abuses or things like that. Just because, hey, to each their own. Um, it's just, sorry. It's just sorry, oh my gosh. It's just one of those things that just sounds good, but there's so many kind of drawbacks to it. And today I like to talk about why it is that your abusers have always wanted to hammer into you this concept of moral relativism, or being someone who has this to each their own kind of mindset, instead of being someone who has an opinion, or someone who judges, or someone who has thoughts on the matter, or someone who has their own, kind of moral compass that they want to live by. Not even just for themselves, but um, that they think will really benefit someone else to live by. Um, and well, normally I stick to kind of like the facts here. I kind of want to today explore more of the spiritual aspects of gang stalking, of harassment, of narcissism, and the spiritual aspects of um of moral relativism and its dangers. Um, But before I do that, first I want to begin talking about who benefits when you just turn a blind eye um, to any and all forms of behavior. When you stop making things your business. Um, Now, first and foremost, the reason moral relativism, um, especially now in this day and age, has gotten bigger and bigger is because a lot of the rules we have in society are made up. They genuinely are. Um, a lot of the rules that we follow, a lot of ways that we were raised, they were just people trying to navigate life, how life was when they were, younger, in ways that made sense to them and in ways that benefited people in positions of power and a whole host of other things. And so this idea that of live and let live isn't necessarily bad, but nothing is ever all bad. There is rarely anything on this earth that is all bad or all good. Majority of things exist within the gray. But I do want to but there are things that do exist in the all bad or all good ranges. And I don't like the idea of moral of casting the view of moral relativism on any and every kind of situation, because in many instances, not having an opinion or not being more strategic in how you maneuver or how others should maneuver, it just doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit society. It doesn't really. All it benefits is people in positions of power who don't give a shit about you and that view you as that view you no different than like the swine inside of as some type of factory plant for producing sausages. Like you're just labor. You're just meat. You're just a producer for a body producer. You're not. You just aren't. You're not human like they are. They are the chosen ones, and you're just. And you're just some background character. But to get more into the spiritual aspect of things, there is definitely an emphasis on this world too. And if you're someone who grew up Christian or things like that, you'll constantly have gone to Sunday schools or during mass or church. You'll constantly have heard the concept of being in the world but not of the world, and that's because we constantly talk about how what's the word I'm looking for? About just how dangerous and unlawful and without morals the rest of the world is. And to be very fair, the church isn't wrong when they say that. As a child, especially if you're under 21 right now and you're listening to this, matter of fact, I say if you're under 25 and you're listening to this, you have pretty much all your life lived in a bubble. And by a bubble, I mean you were in a household where you weren't paying any bills, you were at school where you had to do this, then you went from school to college, or you just haven't had to exist in the real world. Now, some of us, the real world kind of slips in there, especially if you grew up in poverty and things. You already know how fucking cruel this world is. You already know how, you get you really do have a better understanding of the cruelty of of this world and of how just how things work. You have more than likely experienced what it's like to have things not go your way. You've likely already are well experienced uh in just constantly having someone's boot on your neck, constantly being shoved down, constantly being, you know, just kicked while you're down and kicked when you're up. You have like a PhD in in bullshit because you've been dealing with bullshit since you got here. So people like me or people like us who have grown up and seen that side of life, like we're more than I think that's the reason why so many one of the things that I noticed when I went to this private school when I was a teenager in another part of the country is that the kids, they were kind of just off put by kind of like how happy I was or how upbeat I was or about how serious I was about my education and things like that. And a lot of times they were put off by that because it just seemed like I was so like fake nice. Like it just seemed like I was so weird. But the thing that these rich kids or these when they weren't rich, they're like more like just comfortable. The thing that these comfortable kids didn't understand is that I had just gotten out of an environment where, I would be friends with someone one day and then never see them again because they're shot and dead. Or we are, despite the fact that I'm in high school, we're starting English class off from, what a noun is. Or what else is there? Or in every class, there's constantly a fight. Like just, oh my God, like, oh, and don't get me started on the community predators that are just out there in the open, constantly trying to nag you and get your body, and these fucking pedophiles. And like, if you were like, they didn't understand where I came from. I was just in a situation where like I had blood stains on me because, the water went off in the house and I couldn't properly clean up and I had to go by a friend's house just to, they just have no idea about just how happy the reason I went to school every day so fucking happy was because this was a side of life that I never experienced, that I like, oh my gosh, like the calmness, the fact that I wasn't considered smart. I was just regular at that school. Don't get me wrong, I did honor classes at that school too, but it was just, it was such a one, I was genuinely happy to be there. Like there was nothing that could, like even the bullies at this school, like I don't even call them bullies because they weren't even actually, like I know middle schoolers who were harder than them. Like they're not like the bullies, and I'm putting air quotes right now, at my school were the people that like watching Filthy Frank and doing weird shit. Like they weren't even like they weren't even hard. Like it was just the most. But yeah, going there, I was very upbeat. I was very happy. I was very nice. And I threw a lot of people off because they were like, "Why are you so nice? Why are you this?" But and once again, like another thing that you might get from your gang stalkers is this idea of them constantly trying to get you or force you to be more authentic, even though you are being authentic. But here's the issue with your gang stalkers. Majority of your gang stalkers are the people that are harassing you. These are people that don't know. They don't know shit about they don't know shit about the ghetto. They don't know shit about the life, on the other side of the tracks. They don't know shit about that. So they see you and you just come off as kind of like weird or perplexing, or they try to attack you with all these different things. And it's just like, no. I just know, like I already know how horrible life can be. Like I already, like I've been through the worst. Like I grew up through the worst. Like there's really, like and people, like whenever I watch these videos on people that are like for instance, Pursuit of Wonder. I actually enjoy that channel, but Pursuit of Wonder did a video on nice people. And the thing that really throws me off about all these videos where people are constantly taking shots at nice people is that it always comes from the perspective of someone who just has lived an average life. Like this is another reason why I always get into why psychology is so wide, or why I always take shots about, your gang stalkers just being people with no lives. And that's because when you're someone who's been through the trenches, when you're someone who has just live that life. When you're someone who just knows about the ghetto, when you're someone who's just when you were born, life hit you in the fucking face with a brick and curb stomped your ass. You just, first of all, when you get out of that situation, you're pretty happy. Like, you're pretty upbeat. Like, I'm a pretty happy and upbeat person. Like, that's just, it's just how I am, because I'm just, when I was born, I saw how horrible this life could be. Like, literally before I even went to school, I'm not even going to get into that. But I also want to talk about, but that is segueing into this other discussion that I wanted to have about once again, people at the people just that lack the range being the ones to dictate your life, or the ones to dictate how your morals should be, or the ones to dictate these different things. And Pursuit of Wonder is someone who did a video on nice people and what's so off-putting about them. But the thing about these videos about what's so off-putting about nice people is that it's always done from the perspective of someone who just doesn't have the range. Like, they just really don't get it. They don't understand why nice people exist. And that's because your average nice person is someone who went through hell and then they got out of it. And it's just like, there's very little that could actually bring you down. You're a very understanding person. Like me, like something I do like all the time is I'm very, very, very just understanding. I am very like when someone does something, I'm just like, I understand that that's not you. I understand that that's it's kind of like those psychology memes where someone was like, you can't cheat on a girl that has like a psych degree, because she'll do something like, I know that the reason that you're cheating on me isn't because of who I am, but because of the fact that you have a wound and that you weren't taken care of when you like you kind of get a degree in psychology when you've been through so much shit, and you've come out of it. And you survived it, because some people go through a lot of shit and they don't really survive it, even if they're still here physically. What I mean by they don't survive it is that they're mentally just not, like, they check out, but if you're the type of person who's gone through shit and you survived it, like, you didn't mentally check out, you didn't lose yourself, you didn't, succumb to the wounds that were inflicted on you. You just tend to be a very compassionate, observant. You tend to have high emotional intelligence. You tend to be very pensive, like you just kind of get shit a little bit quicker than most, or a little bit better. And once again, that's for the survivors, because there's many people who experience all this trauma and all this shit and they don't survive. They just, they're permanently mentally capped, and perhaps not permanently, but the wounds are just too great, so they just choose to stay at a certain mental cap because that's what's comfortable for them. But yeah, the reason I'm going into all of this is because part of especially with me, and specifically like the issue with talking about the specifics of gang stalking is that it's or harassment by agents of chaos, is that it's very case specific. So you're not exactly going to necessarily relate to the specifics of my story, but there's something in your life that someone else is trying to shame you for, or that they're trying to get you out of if you're being targeted by agents of chaos. And the reason they're trying to shame you for that habit that you picked up, or something that you've just a way that you are, is because they don't have the range. They really just lack the capacity to understand why it is that you behave the way you do. And even if they did understand why, they think it's some type of negative, instead of just recognizing that they're the ones with the handicap, not you. The fact that you're kinder or nicer or more compassionate, or more just the fact that you don't let the evils of the world turn you into a reactive, abusive asshole that's not a weakness. That's not an issue. That's not a problem. It's okay. In fact, it's even, I would even go so far as to call it a fucking virtue or a superpower. Like, it's not easy. Especially you ghetto kids, you kids that are from the ghetto. Like, I always talk about how I'm where I'm at, not because of, like, if you're a person who got out of the ghetto, you didn't do that on your, like, that was luck. Like, and I always say this because it's just, I know, yes, there are things that you specifically did, but to be honest, getting out of the ghetto is literally like, it's a roll of the dice. There's so much shit that happens in your life. Like, the fact that I even made it to 25, like, like, it still just shocks me because there's just so much shit that happened the first 14 years of my life that is just like, it's like, even me and my siblings, we talk about this all the time. We're just like, oh my God, like, it's no wonder any of us are where we're at right now, because when we look at how the world is and what we had to live through, we're just like, what the, like, the fact that, like, oh my gosh, there were just so many instances where I could have been kid. Like, oh my goodness, just so much shit. Like, it's just, you really begin to realize just how much luck or chance plays a factor in things, because there's just, getting out of the ghetto isn't a unless you are just like born with, your past life memories or some shit, if you even believe in that. Getting out of the ghetto is a game of chance. Like, you just have to get lucky. um Going up from, the bottoms of society to getting even just to the middle of society, just getting out of the bottom is just such a hard thing. Like, it's almost like, it takes this is the reason why I say that as a Black person or as a minority or anyone who grew up in poverty, you have to constantly be exceptional, because it takes being exceptional and lucky just to get out of that shit. um Especially if you grew up like, oh, like, I'm sorry, but where I was living, like, it was just the trenches. Like, oh my gosh, like, talk about little girls murdering other little girls just because some boy looked like, talk about like, I don't know. Anyways, talk about like your bus having to take a different route every single, like, every fucking month or so, just because, or not even month, maybe even week, because there's so much police tape from whatever murder or whatever happened here. So you got to take a different route. Like, it's just so much going on. And then once again, all of the pedophiles, perverts, and creeps that just that are just preying on your little ass. Like, it's just, I just, for the life of me, can't, like, I know that there's nothing I could have done to get out of that situation. I just got lucky. Um, but yeah, so people make these videos on nice people, where they're constantly talking about how, oh, it's so inauthentic, or oh, it's so weird, or oh, it's so this or so that. You're constantly, and it's just like, you've obviously never been kicked hard enough in the mouth by life. Because if you did, you too would have you think a little bit more about whether or not you want to pop off at the mouth at a stranger that you don't know. Like, these, a lot of times, your gang stalkers, these are people that lack street smarts. Like, these are people that lack the ability to kind of to read a room, or take the temperature, kind of like, just like, these are the type of people, like, like, you don't know somebody, you don't want to sit there and fucking pop off at the mouth at everybody and shit like that. Like, you don't want to, like, nah, just, these people, like, you don't, it's like they don't know the range of how bad life can get and just how bad life can be. So then they see someone like you and they're just like, oh, let me make their life worse, or let me make their life. And it's just like, bitch, I didn't have much of a life for you to destroy in the first place. So, and I've already seen the horrors of this world. Like, there's really, like, it's probably only up from here. And by only up from here, I mean, like, even when it comes to just like my mental, like, there's really like I can only become a more positive or more happy or more calm person because I've already been literally before I even started school, been drop kicked in the mouth by life. Like, like there really isn't there just isn't your harassers, your gang stalkers. These are people that just, once again, just lack the range. They really don't have it. I remember seeing some posts by people who were talking about how, they just wanted to help me be more productive, or they just wanted to make me a better. No. Like, and maybe for some people it is, but for someone who has all my life, all of life has been a struggle. All of life has been a fight. All of life has been a challenge. There's really nothing that this experience really brings to me, or that really elevates in me anything, because all it's done is really just cripple me more. All of it's done is just really it's just been like it's just been life. It's just been regular ass life. But yeah, I say all that to say that if you feel like the reason why I bring that up is because, once again, and I say this every single video, but I want to say it again now, the reason you don't want to ask why when it comes to why, the situation that you're going through, the abuse that you're dealing with, is because there really is no reason. There is no rhyme or reason. There isn't a lot of times these channels that are like this, that discuss these things, they talk about the spiritual aspects and these moral ideas of maybe, you were doing something. Like, a lot of times your harassers will try to shame you or make you feel like you're morally impure, that there's something, for some moral reason, you're going through what you're going through. But there is no moral reason why it is that you're going through what you're going through. If there's anyone who lacks a sense of morals, it's your abusers. It's not you. You're going through what you're going through because you just are. There is no real there's just no real moral guidance behind it. And even if there were, anyone who really genuinely cares about you wouldn't put you through the level of abuse that they are just to get you to change. That's not how this works. That's not how inciting positive or real change works. In fact, I used to be open to the idea of, having a family and kids and things like that. But this experience right here has just, I think, it's just inching me closer and closer over the edge of just being anti-natalist. Like, I don't even want to bring children into this world because of all the stupidity and ridiculousness that I've had to deal with just being myself, And what else is there? And that just kind of brings me to the topic of the whole moral relativism issue, and why it is that your harassers don't want you to have morals, or they don't want you to have standards of how you carry yourself, or operation, or things like that. And why they don't want you, or why the idea of you, something that specifically harassers really don't like, is they don't like the social justice aspect of me. They really don't like the fact that I think that, the people should have a good quality of life. They don't like the fact that I'm anti-colorist. They don't like the fact that I can I have never been the person who's like what's the word I'm looking for? I've never been part of the whole fat acceptance thing. I've only ever been part of the whole or healthy. I've never been part of healthy at every size. I've just been part of fat acceptance. Like, they have an issue with the fact that I don't really judge people by by how they present. I just kind of, anyone can be a friend to me. Like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm not gonna not talk to you. Even when it comes to romantic partners, I don't really have that much of a that many physical requirements. Or things that really, like, I can just about love anyone. I have my standards and I have my ideas and things that I find attractive, but at the end of the day, not majority of them are just not they're just not hard they're not hard stops. A few of them are, but majority of them are not. My hard stops are typically behaviors. That's what really defines whether or not I'll be with someone. But yeah, I do need to find them attractive and things like that. But it's just, the point I'm making is that I just tend to have a very what's what I'm looking for? I'm just that person who's I'm an advocate. I'm an advocate. And something that my harassers hate about me is the fact that I'm an advocate. But once again, the only people that hate advocates are people that have never. I genuinely believe that it's people that have never ever in their life been drop kicked in the mouth by life. Like they don't, they just don't get it. Or people that have had normal or just okay childhoods. Like people that haven't had crazy as fuck childhoods. Like I don't think that they just don't get the idea of advocacy. They don't get the idea. They're the type of people who just want to live this life for them and get out of it what they can, and they don't want anyone to tread on their experience of life. And this is where I'm really trying to go with this video. You know, your harassers, part of why they don't want you to have a moral compass, or part of why they don't want you to even be an advocate for other people and things like that, is because of the fact that they just don't want you to first of all, they don't want you. First of all, they have these very subhuman ideas about people who have been going through the struggle, or they have these very inhumane ideas about people that have had traumatic childhoods or things like that. They just don't. To them, it just doesn't matter, or it just doesn't register. Or they're the type of people where the only they've just dealt with probably at most just neglect. And don't get me wrong, neglect is a horrible thing. I've experienced neglect. It's terrible. It's very terrible. It's not like a soft punish or issue. That's a pretty intense form of that can cause trauma, you know, being neglected as a child. But as someone who's experienced not only neglect, but actually like physical abuse or things like even sexual abuse and things like that, like it's just, once again, these magnitudes of earthquakes, you know, what we have when you're being harassed or gang stalked, you're dealing with people that have either had magnitude 3 or lower earthquakes trying to dictate the lives of people that have had, you know, magnitude higher earthquakes. A lot of times when it comes to these channels, these victims of harassment, a lot of them are nobodies. And I was always like, they just always go for the lowest hanging fruit. They're always trying to go for people that don't have the money, that don't have the network, it's always the lowest hanging fruit that they go for. And this is because people who are financially challenged, people who are socially isolated, you know, these are just perfect victims. They're just these perfect people to kind of like fuck with impunity. But it's not impunity for long. And this is why I constantly harp on building a community and connecting with others, and really joining forces with other people, because what they try to do is isolate you, but that's the last thing you want to do. What they try to do is they try to kill hope within you. They try to do all this shit because it's just like, to them, you need to either perform how they want you to perform or die. To them, it's you need to be how we want you to be, or just kill yourself, because you're a worthless life form if not. And this is what I'm going into with that whole once again, the idea of fitting their standards, or fitting their ideas of morality, or fitting their ideas of how you should operate, even though even though they're wrong in so many different ways, even though they don't have the range, they don't have the even though they're just not in a place for being these dictators of how others should live their lives. They really aren't in any place for that. But as far as they're concerned, that just doesn't matter. They said what they said. They think what they think. What they think is law. What they think is, you know, to them, it's just they're infallible. But in reality, what they are is ignorant. So once again, you have these people that lack the range, that are ignorant, that don't know how to they just don't have the ability to even handle someone like you that is dealing with complex trauma or things, or CPTSD or things like that, or who's trying to grow out of whatever it is that you were experiencing. Like, and that's another thing. A lot of gang stuff, like, it happens when you're young. Like, for me, it started when I was 20 years old. And it's just like at 20 and 21, I'm just too young. Like, there's so much more development that I was supposed to go through, that I was supposed to have, that got delayed because of the fact that this whole thing happened. Like, once again, like in my previous video of the whole fixing what isn't broken that abusers try to do. Once again, your abusers, they don't know you. They really have no idea of who you are, and they think that they can fix you. They think that they can, oh man, this person's too soft. Well, maybe if I did this, this, and this to them, then they would toughen up. No, bitch. Like, they really and all they're doing is really just delaying your development. All they're really doing is just delaying your growth and things like that. And helping you isn't really it's not what they're actually there for. It's not anything that they're actually doing. This is just what they tell themselves, and this is just what they tell others, or this is just like, it's all just a game to them. And they want you to adopt their mindset because they think that they have this perspective or this view that is more well-rounded, that is more complete, or that is better or more beneficial. And when it is actually not, that's not the case at all. And once again, this goes back to the whole idea of moral relativism, where they want you to just stop having your own standards, stop having your own beliefs, stop trying to, do this and that for others, because you should just be worried about yourself, just be focused on yourself, just think about yourself, blah, 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 selfish, egotistical self. And it's really weird because as someone who carves out time in her day to really process my own thoughts and my own feelings and things like that, I really don't need someone else telling me that I need to focus on myself. Like, I really don't. I'm highly introspective. This is, and for many of you, y'all are probably a highly introspective type too. But for many of us, like, this just isn't. It's just not an area of our life that we need any more improvement on, or any more input on. And where else I wanted to take this was, once again, to that whole spiritual aspect. Normally we stick to logic here, but I wanted to go into a bit more of that whole spiritual aspect, and about how evil, there's this one quote that goes, evil doesn't, exist in this, evil gets to exist in this world, not because, evil gets to thrive in this world, not because of bad people, but because of the good people that do nothing. There's a lot of people who have this perspective of living life just for their own selves. And hey, not all of us are just strong enough. Like, I don't think that everyone needs to be a hero. I don't think everyone can be a hero. I don't think everyone can be an advocate, or a leader, a social leader, or anything like that. I don't think that's a role that any and everyone should try to fill or can fill. I think for your average citizen, just being conscientious is really just about all you can do. But that's the thing with your harassers or your abusers. Just the mere fact of you being conscientious or trying to raise conscientiousness is enough to set them off. I always talk about, I bring up colorism, for example, because that's just something it's just a nice, simple example. Like, I feel like it's very simple and easy to kind of just understand. The idea of judging someone for something that they can't control, and trying to, not only judging them for that, but trying to lessen their quality of life because of it. Like, it's always the people, and that's another thing. It's always the people who have certain benefits or privileges in your life that don't have to worry about not being with them, that are constantly trying to tell other people to just deal or to just accept it or to just put up with their quality of life being, lesser. I think it's, despite the fact that I'm not a dark skinned woman, I think it's pretty disgusting that for a lot of darker skinned people, romantically, socially, they just tend to be coming last or be demonized or even like ignored at best or demonized at worst. Like that's just something that's just like, it's pretty fucking disgusting. And the same thing with short guys. Personally, me, I don't necessarily have I just never in my life really cared about height on guys. I've started to more because something that guys always say about short women is that short women are very feisty, they're very spicy, they got attitudes, and it's just, I think that's just something with short people in general. Um like I think it's just one of those stereotypes that just kind of rings true. Like short people just tend to be like, whenever I dated guys that are taller than me, they just seem to just be so much more chill. But guys that are like shorter than me, it's like they're constantly trying to prove something, or they're constantly like, basically just recently I've just been like, let me try doing something different. But all my life, I've never really cared about height on guys or things like that, because the way I feel it, if a guy is a certain, like, he can't control his height, like the fuck, like how, that's just a weird, like to me, it's just, it's just kind of weird to kind of not not in most cases, like I know not in every case, like if someone's like a midget, you don't have to. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't find attractive. What I'm saying is you should question and you should acknowledge the fact that a lot of the ideas that you have about what is attractive, what isn't attractive, who is worth talking to, who isn't worth talking to, who is worthy of attention and time and who isn't, things that just kind of who is worthy of a quality life and who isn't worthy of a quality life. A lot of those ideas are that come from social programming, or come from just forces and people that are the media and things that are just outside of your control. Like at the end of the day, a lot of your opinions on what you find attractive really aren't your own. They're what's been fed to you. Like to be honest, like let's just be real. Like majority of you find what you find attractive not because you do in and of yourself, but because someone told you. Now, there are certain things that, once again, I would consider to be universally attractive, like fitness. I think it's universally attractive. I think, clear skin is universally attractive. I think things like, healthy hair, just, regular signs of health and vitality and a host of other things. Those are just normal signs of attractiveness. But when it starts to get really nitpicky and things like that, hey, look, at the end of the day, it is what it is. But I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever, you need to date short guys or you need to date darker women. The thing is just, people always have this issue with people that have lower qualities of life because of these things that they can't control, advocating for themselves. And they have an issue with other people advocating for them as well. And it's just like, at the end of the day, like, if they want to improve their quality of life, who are you to stop them? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you trying to stop other people from having greater access to a better quality of life? Like, that's just fucking weird to me. And it's not like it's not like they're asking to be millionaires. It's not like they're telling you, I demand to have a 6-figure job and I demand to, and I demand to live in a mansion because I deserve nice. No, it's not even like that. Like, it's literally just people saying, I'd like to, I'd like to have a chance in just a better quality of life in terms of socializing, like just simple things like that. Like, something else that really gets me about society is it's like there's this weird push for people to accept being antisocial or to accept being isolated. And it's like, as a human being, wanting to socialize and be social and be part of the goings on of what's happening around you is completely normal and natural. That's not even if you are attention seeking, that's natural. It's normal to want to be it's normal to want to be in communion with your peers. It's normal to want to be seen by your peers. It's normal to want to, like, these things are all natural, and it's just really weird. And I also, not only weird but sinister, watching just these natural and normal human emotions be demonized, all because some people don't want to. They don't want someone loving someone with darker skin, or they don't want someone loving a guy who's short. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, calm down. But this is where that whole but this is kind of where I wanted to go into the whole spiritual aspect of things, because what we're seeing right now is, and I love JP, Waking with JP, what he does with these his videos, because he bashes authority. Like, a lot of the things that a lot of the issues that I have with people that are against SJWs or that are against leftist ideas or thoughts is that they tend to take the most extreme, or things that aren't even left. Like, a lot of it is authoritarian, or a lot of it is Marxist, or a lot of it is some extreme ideological kind of take on things. And what they do is they try to muddy the waters, or muddy a very clear ideology or something that makes sense into something that doesn't make sense. For instance, when it comes to Intersectionality by Kimberly Crenshaw, and this idea of understanding the way multiple oppressions affect certain groups of people in ways that it doesn't affect others. So, like, and how that needs to be taken into consideration when creating and implementing plans for improving the quality of life for others. Because that's all, social justicing does, just about improving quality of life for other people. But even when it comes to more political issues, more economically political issues, more, governance political issues, at the end of the day, I just really enjoy how Awakening with JP, how he does this thing where he kind of points out the fact that what makes someone the fact that you can have the same viewpoints or have kept the same political standing that you had maybe a decade ago, but because leftist ideology has gone so far off the deep end, it's not even leftist ideology anymore, it's more authoritarian and things like that, you can come off as being extremist in a lot of ways, or extremely right-leaning. But something that the reason why I wanted to bring up that whole point is the fact that whenever you want to take down an opponent's argument, or whenever you want to, try to, whenever, your opponent is gaining steam in something, or whenever goodness or justice is starting to win, a great way to, a great way to circumvent that, or a great way to turn the tables, is to take, your opponent's beliefs and ideas and things like that and completely flip it on its head. So while the idea of improving the quality of a disadvantaged person's life is a noble idea, something that, some asshole will do is they'll go, oh, well then, if Black women are disadvantaged in society on the basis of gender and race, then what happens when you're a fucking then let's start looking at things like transgenderism. I'm a man born in the wrong body. Like, it's just, they start coming up with they start making up these, it's called astroturf. They start making up these obviously bullshit ideas that anyone can see is wrong, and they just start parenting it, and they try taking over ideas and organizations, and it's just a way to kind of weaken a base and make it look less credible. Because what happens is the people that are now, we're part of the left, it's like they're looking at it and they're going, what the fuck? This isn't normal anymore. This isn't helpful anymore. Or this is becoming a circus or a shit show. And that's because, your idea or your platform has been infiltrated by your enemy, and they are trying to usher in ultimately something that would benefit them. Because people that it's either going to turn off leftists and make them join, the far right and things like that, or it's going to force a person to lose all of their moral standings, or it's just going to force you to lose any sense of self-governance or a moral compass in order to, and even just welcome a complete state of cognitive dissonance just to actually remain part of that ideological group, or remain part of whatever you were, aligning yourself with. And that's just something that can happen to you at an individual level too. And this is kind of where agents of chaos and narcissism and things like that tend to shine, because what you have are these people who they notice the things that you care about. They take the values that you have and they try to flip them on their head, and they try to make it look like they try to distort it into something that it never was to begin with. They take you being highly conscientious or, kind or nice to people, to everyone, to anyone, and try to turn that into some type of fault. And then they sit there and they parrot this idea that it's a fault, it's a fault, it's a fault, it's a fault, it's a fault. And they only do that it's just a way to get you to doubt yourself, or to even view yourself as bad. Even though what you're doing isn't bad, it's not negative. There's really nothing wrong with it. There's something wrong with them and their perspective of it. It's with them, but they try to make the issue with you. It's like they take their issue and they put it on you so that you can think it's in you. But no, their issues are not in you. They're on you, and you can push them right back. But they do this in order to confuse you. They do this in order to just get you exhausted. There's going to be this constant back and forth. Oh, they'll punish you for sticking to your moral grounds, and then they'll punish you if you start to evade your moral grounds. Like, they're trying to play both sides of the field. You're an awful person for being super nice. You're an awful and manipulative person if you're nice to everyone. And then you're an awful person if you're not nice to, like, what is wrong with you? Why aren't you caring? You don't know what people are going through. And you're constantly thinking to yourself, wait a minute. No, originally I believed that. Or no, I just don't know what to think anymore. And they do this to you in order to exhaust you, and also to make you morally confused and ripe for the picking. This is a way for them to kind of do this thing where it's like, it's just a way for them to, once again, and I always bring up this idea of just kind of like wearing you out, or, beating you down until you're like this hollow puppet that they can put strings through and just kind of make you dance a lot around like how they want you to. At the end of the day, it's a power move, and it's just a way for them to try and control you. So that it's just a way for them to control you. That's all it is. So when you realize you're in a situation where someone is like harshly judging you for how you just choose to for your own moral codes or things like that, where they're trying to wear you out of having any type of opinion or any type of judgments or any type of moral codes. Normally, the only people that want to wear you down out of having an opinion or morals or values are people that would benefit from you not having opinions, morals, and values. And the only people that benefit from someone not having opinions, morals, and values are authoritarian, like dictators who want to have absolute control, or narcissists or agents of chaos who want to have absolute control over their victims, or if we will go to a spiritual side of the things, the devil. Because I talked about how I wanted to get into this, and we're an hour in, and now I'm finally getting there. But once again, when it comes to these demonic or low vibe or just low frequency entities or human beings that operate at a very low frequency, it's important for them to wear you out or to make you lack any type of moral or to just get you to discourage your moral compass and to adopt this moral relativistic perspective where anything can go, and to not have opinions or judgments about anything, because this just benefits them. It just it benefits evil in this world. When you decide I'm not going to judge anything or anyone, anything could happen. This is the reason why children exist in the ghettos that they do, and the reason why these children are and the reason why a lot of us children from these ghettos tend to have such horrible upbringings and things like that, because no one wants to grow up, no one wants to adopt the moral compass. No one wants to have certain values and stick to them. And not only that, but then you have predators who are constantly trying to put you in this state of put your parents in this state where they can't focus, or they're constantly being, traumatized or things like this. Like someone benefits from there being a group of poor people, or a group of just a class that you can, like I said, it's the oldest trick in the book. Blaming the people at the bottom rung of society for all of the issues that are happening at the top. Like, it's just the oldest trick in the book. And, having a poverty class of people, it's kind of like how men kind of have this class of women that they deem as modern or Jezebels or only fuckable or prostitutes or things like that. Just, it's kind of like how men kind of dehumanize women being human, just like they are, and craving things like sex and stuff like that. How they do that in order to create a class of people that you can just abuse or do whatever with and not feel any guilt about it. It's kind of like how Hitler did his whole thing with dehumanizing Jews and making it a class of people that you don't care about, that you can just abuse and view as subhuman. It's all the same thing. Like, it's literally just all coming from the same playbook. A scapegoat. That's what it's called, a scapegoat. And when you create a class of scapegoats, you have a class of people that you can just, fuck with impunity, and it won't and it just doesn't matter. And it helps people to not feel it just helps people to not feel like they're doing anything wrong. It's kind of like stepping on ants. Do you cry when you step on an ant when you go outside? No, you don't. You want to know why you don't cry? Because you don't give a fuck about that ant. That ant is beneath you. It's beneath your feet. You don't care about its life. You're just not empathetic with that ant. And that's kind of what happens with being scapegoated by another group that has more power than you. And if you're someone who's a victim of abuse, your abuser is typically someone who, the abuse happens in situations where there are power imbalances. And you being a victim of narcissistic abuse, or being a victim of agents of chaos or gang stalking and things like that, more than likely you're just someone who is on the lower end of the power imbalance. And what that's done to you, or what that's created, is a perfect environment for not only the abuse to thrive, but for you to be viewed as nothing but an ant for someone to crush, and for your abusers to dehumanize you. I don't know what it is with humans and why we struggle to view people that are lower on the power spectrum as being human. Like, I don't know what that is, but it's just something that we do. It's just something that we have. And where I was going with this is also the whole fact of evil, or the devil, or these demonic or lower level entities, and how it is that they benefit from from you lacking a moral compass or from exhausting you out and tiring you out in these ways. And that is because and that is because sorry, give me a moment. And that is because evil gets to thrive whenever you evil also thrives in these power imbalances. This is why you have a lot of people who kind of like when they're on the left, this is kind of like that slippery slope that tends to take someone from being leftist to authoritarian. Is because truth be told, power imbalances are like sugar to bacteria. Sugar feeds disease, it feeds bacteria in the body. If you ever want to heal yourself, cutting out sugar is a great way to heal. It's a great way to heal whatever ailments you might have. It'll clear up your skin. Your hair will be shinier. Trust me, cut out sugar, especially pure sugar, things like refined sugars and things like that. Like if it's not coming from a fruit that has skin on it still, and by that I mean like an apple. Bananas are really bananas fine too, but it's just if the fruit you're eating still has a skin on it, and it's a sweet fruit, you're getting fiber with it and a whole bunch of other nutrients that helps to kind of minimize whatever damages might be done by consuming sugar purely, especially refined sugar. But that's just a side note. But yeah, power imbalances are a great way for things like abuse to. They're just great breeding grounds for abusive situations, and and this is the reason why so many of the victims of gang stalking or harassment or stuff like that, they're nobodies because you kind of have to be in order to, like, that power imbalance needs to be there. And not only that, but even when it comes to just like this whole spiritual warfare and things like that people talk about or that you might be experiencing, because I want to validate that as well. Because honestly, the level of coordination that some of this stuff has, like I wouldn't be like, I'm not ruling out spiritual warfare entirely. In fact, after what I've gone through, I think a lot of things that we consider mental illnesses are actually people going through some really real shit. But that's kind of like an old worldview. Like there's some type of African tribe, I think, that has that kind of viewpoint or perspective where they view their mentally ill as like fighting, I don't know, something in the spirit realm. I don't know. But yeah, if you want to see it that way, that's cool too. That's what I'm really trying to say. But where I was going with this whole thing is that for a lot of us, there is by allowing ourselves to be worn down or to lack your own opinions or to just being worn down and made to not have your own moral standards, or to allow people to sit there and try to tell you that that you having opinions that don't favor someone else is somehow you being, morally reprehensible or things like that, or somehow you being an inherently bad person or things like that. That's that is just it's a sign of someone else's spiritual immaturity, and two, it's just a way to get you weakened. It's just a way to allow horrors that happen to society to just go unchecked, or sorry, to just happen, to just go unchecked. This is the reason why we have so many children that deal with things like having a predator in the family, And you're thinking to yourself, why the fuck didn't anyone say something about or do something about this predatory individual in your family? Or, where is the care? Where is the concern? Where is the, like, what the fuck are people doing? And that's because wearing you down or making you question what's left, what's right, what's wrong, what's right, just getting you to that point where you just don't give a fuck anymore, that that just creates the perfect storm for evil to go unchecked. When your abusers have gotten you to the point where you're just like, I don't care anymore. I don't care. I'm not going to speak on these issues. Like, getting you to the point where you don't care is exactly where the devil or where evil wants you to be, because then it can just happen, or it can just thrive without any without any hindrance. At this point, once your abusers have gotten you so worn out, like tuckered out, it's like they can do anything now. Like, oh great, I can run amok now. Oh great, I can say whatever I want. I can put my views and my opinions out there, and you won't challenge me on that. I get to have the mic and no one else gets to have it. That's what your abusers are ultimately trying to do. They're trying to have the mic. They want to have the mic in their hand, and they don't want it in your hand at all, or in the hands of people like you. They don't want you speaking up. They don't want you influencing the world. They don't want you influencing others. This idea of being on some type of moral standing, or having a type of or just having a your own code of conduct, all of that is just they're not into it. They fucking hate it. And they hate it because it means that it's kind of like, think of like the harassment that you're going through as a way to kind of like to take out anyone who might be the next Malcolm, or who might be the next, Sojourner Truth, or who might be the next truth speaker in this society. Like, it's just a way to get you to comply without them having to even lay a finger on you, or get you. It's kind of like, yeah, it's just forced compliance. Getting forced compliance out of you without them having to actually threaten you, to have to, even though they do threaten you, to have to, physically harm you, even though they do probably physically harm you, and things like that. But yeah, it's just another way for your abusers, for evildoers to just be able to act without impunity, or to act with impunity. Or to act, without anyone stopping them. Because anyone who would stand in their way, or anyone who would stop them, or anyone who would be an advocate, they've just worn them all out to the point where they don't even want to, like, they just don't care anymore. And yeah, that's never a good look. That's never a good thing. So yeah, if you're just someone who has your own moral standing, your own code of conduct, and things like that, and someone's trying to convince you that, oh, the only reason and there's something, once again, that's just something that I personally go through, but you might be going through it as well, is I constantly have people trying to convince me that the only reason I hold the opinions I do is because someone else does. I think I was talking one time, I don't know if I did it on video, but if I didn't do it on video, I'd like to talk about how I had this one experience where someone was just kind of trying to, like, they were just kind of implying that the only reason I hold the perspectives I do is because someone else told me to, or because someone else or because I'm virtue signaling. Oh my God, don't even get me started on the whole virtue signaling aspect of this whole thing. Like, people seriously, like, there's seriously a group of people that just can't understand why it is that you would actually genuinely, hold on to certain beliefs. And these are the same people who will sit there and claim that they're a smoker. And it's like, bro, you didn't like, if they're into smoking and smoker culture just because they like the culture. They don't actually, so, you know how many people do drugs because they just want to fit in, rather than the fact that they actually enjoy doing it. Like, there's just so many people who have identities that are born out of the desire to fit in. And once again, as a human being, that is completely natural. That is normal. It's okay if you want to smoke and do drugs and all this other shit because that's what you think is mature, that's what you think is cool, or that's what you think is makes you a grown ass person or whatever, or that's what you think, it's whatever. But at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, you're part of that culture because you just figured it out. You met these people and you're just like, I like this. I think I'll identify with this. I think I'll be part of this subculture. I think I'll like these are like it's like they want their subcultures that they're part of to be cool, but whatever subculture you're part of, it's not gonna work. Um but yeah, that's just I just wanted to have that whole little conversation on moral relativism and why it is that your abusers don't want you to have your own moral compass or things like that, because it just doesn't benefit them. It takes the mic away from them, and they don't want the mic to go into someone else's hand. Also, it confuses you and it tuckers you out because then and at that point, you just become easier to manipulate and easier for all these other things to have happened to you. But yeah, once again, like if you've decided, like there's this one quote that goes, decide what you stand for and then stand for it all the time. Like if you're someone who's, been through the harshness of life, like once again, like like I grew up in the ghetto. I've seen some shit. I've lived some shit. Ish. At a certain point, I just decided the type of person that I want to be. If that makes other people uncomfortable, then that's just, and it's not hurting other people. Like if your actions aren't hurting other people, then there's really no reason you should be ashamed, or other people should be trying to shame you out of your behavior. And it's crazy because it's always the people whose actions are harming other people that want their actions to be normalized, while the actions that aren't harming other people or just making other people's qualities of life good, those are the ones that they want to silence. Like I always bring up my I think also part of why I always bring up the colorism conversations because I have a sister and she's married to this ghetto ass. First of all, both of my sisters are married to men that are very colorist, or men that just they don't really give a fuck about or they're just constantly openly expressing negative views towards darker skin, which is really weird because first of all, one of them has dark skinned daughters and things like that. So that's what also makes it really weird. But even on top of that, it's just the fact that people like this. I remember one time I was on my sister's couch and he was bringing up, someone was like, it was a commercial about how they improved cameras in order to make dark skin more visible in the pictures, or they just improve cameras to where people that are taking photos that have darker skin, the photo quality is better. And he was making some slick remark about how what is it about how their skin shouldn't be, or oh, here we go again it was just some remark about how what's the point in making technology for improving the lives of darker skinned people. And I was just like, you do realize that that's an actual, like when cameras were first invented, black people really didn't show up too well on the cameras. Like this is an actual thing. And this guy he's not even, I wouldn't even consider him light skinned. He's just like a brown skin, kind of like me. But this guy is literally sighing or going on or just trying to express this negative view about technology improving the quality of life for someone else. And it's just like, I made a comment about, well, this is an actual issue, right? And he was like, oh, here we go again, or here she goes. And I'm just like, so you want the right, or you want the ability to be able to spout whatever. This is another thing that's with these people, these agents of chaos. They want the ability to spout whatever bullshit is on their mind. They want the ability to be able to say whatever negative things they want to say. They want the ability to, their authenticity can be completely validated. But for you to be able to say what you want to say, something that doesn't agree with them, or something that they don't care for, then all of a sudden it's an issue. It's always an issue when it comes to advocating. It's never an issue when it comes to belittling other people. They just don't give a fuck. And it's just like, look, bro, if you want the right to, if you want to have the right to be able to say dark-skinned people are fucking ugly and no one should love them, I should have the right to be able to say you're fucking stupid. Like, they just don't ever want it to go both ways. They just want to be able to say whatever they want to say, no matter whose life it impacts, and then that be nothing, and then nothing happen. They just want to be able to speak with impunity. And just that's just where I draw the line. That's just where I'm like, no, no. If you want to live in a world where people get to look, hey, and that's another thing. Go ahead, bro. Say what you want to say. Live how you want to live. But once I start doing that, you don't get to tell me to stop saying what I want to say. Like if it's popular to be colorist, for it to be popular to not be colorist, like for the shift in society to go from one way to another way, like what do you have against that? Like, just like, it's always the people that don't want to take their advice that are always giving advice. It's always the people that are like, just deal with your lot in life. But when the tables turn, then it's like, well, why should I have to live like this? Why should I, not be able to date someone if this is this and that is that, like, but they don't see how someone else might want their, like, it just all comes down to, once again, just that selfish way of thinking. That way of, I should, just that way of, I'm only living this life for me, anyone else be damned. And matter of fact, I'd not only like to live this life for me, because hey, that's fine, but I like for other people to live the way that I want them to as well. Just that overstepping. And just that refusal for wanting other people to have a quality of life similar to theirs. It's just always a fucking issue, and and it's disgusting. But yeah, that just I just wanted to go into that because it's just it's just something that you're going to go through when you're dealing with your harassment or your abuse or your or whatever situation you're in. Just constantly being, tried time and time again, constantly having people trying to force you to not have whatever opinions it is that you have. But they get to have their opinions. that part is cool. They're just fine with them having their opinions, but they don't want you to have yours. And it just goes back to, once again, that whole idea of just letting evil run amok, letting people say and do whatever it is that they want to say and do, and then there being no type of there being no one who can who's ready to stand up for or against, whatever is, the popular, thing to just go against at that moment. It just all goes back to scapegoating. It's literally the oldest trick in the book. Scapegoat, scapegoat. And people don't like to not have a scapegoat. Because there's a lot of aggression that humans naturally have. Like, at the end of the day, we're animals, and animals can be aggressive. And the way organizations like to handle that natural aggression that humans have is by having a scapegoat. Before, people used to have personal duels. Like, guys would get in the street and shoot each other, and to this day that's still happening and stuff like that. But something civilized, and those are what air quotes, civilized societies do, is there's no more, we don't do that killing thing. We don't do hunting. We don't do any of that. No, we just have scapegoats, people that we ruin their quality of life, so that other people, just because, like, it's kind of like it's like a posh way of hunting again, and that's another thing about being victim of abuse. It's like, it's just like there's constantly this predator prey kind of thing going on now. And it's like you're And it's like, if you won't become with your abusers, it's like they get to this point where if you won't become a predator, then you'll be my prey and all this other weird shit. And it's just like, no, no. We don't have to operate like this. Like, it's just that lower reptilian mind. It's just that lower level of operating. People, it's just, and that's the weird thing. Like, it's the weirdest thing ever. It's like people who are in upper levels of society, they honestly think of themselves as accessing higher levels of thought than people at lower levels of society. And while academically that might be true, in an overall sense, at the end of the day, anyone like you got to be pretty fucking stupid to think like it's just it just doesn't fit the bill of things. And not only that, but just the whole idea of trying to, control someone else's life or their thoughts or their feelings and things like that. Like, that's what you do to fucking dogs. That's what you do to fucking I don't even like it when people do it to certain animals, but that's what you do to lower level actual organisms that are at an actual lower level. Humans, we are fundamentally the same. The only thing that changes between humans is choice. But it doesn't matter like, a dog can't make the same choices that I make, not because because of their biology, like because of they're literally limited and handicapped from being able to make the choices that I make. They genuinely can't operate at a human level. But with human beings, that's not the case. Your average majority of humans, unless they're born with some type of disorder or something, specifically born that way, I don't think people can. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, you can develop certain things and this and that and the third, but your average human doesn't develop into a subhuman. That's not how this works. You kind of have to be born with or in early childhood experience something that just kind of robs you of the ability to make certain choices. But even when people are making bad choices, at the end of the day, they're still capable, or they're still at that human level of order where they can. The only thing separating them from you is choice, not biology, not anything else. It's just choice. And it really just shows a lack of awareness, a lack of intelligence. It's a grand display of ignorance to sit there and just, it's also inhumane to sit there and try to, manipulate someone's life in a way that's in a way that, narcissists and gang stalkers and these abusers try to do to you. Like, it's pretty fucking gross. And it honestly just once again boils down to, you are once again being targeted by people that just have no idea. They lack the range. And if there's anyone who is lacking in certain levels of humanity, it's not you. It's the people that are abusing you. Abusers are the ones that lack the humanity, not the victims. You really don't. They like to think of themselves as being on a higher level of, I don't know, thinking, or a higher plane and things like, but they're not. They're not. They're really not. And so yeah, that's just all I wanted to say on that. Make sure that you do not just make sure that you stand for what you stand for, and don't let these people try to convince you that that what you believe in or what you're doing is stupid, especially in the cases, most specifically in the cases where what you're doing or what you stand for isn't harming anyone. And there are certain things that do harm. Being abusive does genuine harm. This whole idea of like medicating and that whole gender ideal bullshit crap that does actual harm. More specifically for like minors and things like that. Like that's what I really care about when it comes to that issue. If a grown man wants to wear a fucking skirt, like, bro, do you? That's where it becomes a situation of live and let live. But to have a child lobbing off body parts, and even that part, like lobbing off, even if that person's adult, lobbing off body parts that are perfectly fine and functioning, and just without, just without the level of, proper consent and things like that. Like telling someone that it's just weird how we want to lie to ourselves about, like, it's kind of like how I was talking about before about how just because something isn't feminist, that doesn't make it negative. Like, look, if you want to lob off pieces of your body in order to become like this transhuman, or just this, you want to become like a reptilian or whatever the fuck you want it to be, then call it that. But having to distort, like when people have to just distort things just to make it make sense, like it's okay. Like if you wanna look like a reptilian gorilla man, do that. Like, but call it what it is. You want to be a reptilian gorilla man. Like it doesn't. You don't have to distort feminist ideology. You don't have to distort science. You don't have to make all these distortions just to live the life you want to live. You know, but this is what happens when when you kind of force people to follow rules that don't necessarily have any basis in things like not harming others, or not what's the word I'm looking for, or not acting as like a roadblock to other people, but that's for another issue. But yeah, as long as you are not harming someone, or as long as you are not sanctioning the harm of another human being, like that's what the real issue is. It's what people trying to normalize abuse because they lack the range for recognizing that not everyone that they don't have the supreme wanting to abuse people that don't have your viewpoint or your perspective is just fucking ridiculous. And that's just a gross step of things. And it's just, yeah. And if you're someone who's on this channel or, listening to these talks, you're more than likely someone who's going through things like narcissistic abuse or gang stalking or all this other stuff. And if you are, then you know very well just how inhumane the treatment that you receive is, just how inhumane what you're going through is. So yeah. While you're experiencing that, I just hope you stay strong, because that's all you really can do.